The DGMT Trust is a public innovator as well as a strategic investor. We commission projects that are aimed at shifting or making systemic shifts in a broad number of areas, including health, education, youth development, and various others. We also believe in communicating our work about those opportunities in an effort to bring civil society, government, as well as the private sector onto the same page around where we can be making the biggest change in South Africa. DGMT is largely committed to creating lasting systems and social change, and that's a large reason why we're invested and are a partner with Ilifa Labantwana, primarily to lead the transformation of early childhood development systems in South Africa.
The difference with this partnership is that I think it's built primarily on years of levels of trust that have been built between all the parties around the table, DGMT, Ilifa, DB, and basically the broader government. Secondly, what makes this partnership quite unique is that it's very refreshing to work with a government counterpart within such as basic education, who really took the time to understand the complexity of what early childhood development was about. And through understanding the complexities, got to understand the various role players and understand that early childhood development in its nature is inherently about partnerships, the role of the caregiver, the practitioners, civil society organizations, the role of governments. So for me, that's what makes it quite different, the openness of government to embrace what truly understanding what early childhood development is about. And the other component that I think we cannot leave out of the equation is the role of organizations like DGMT Trust. So the understanding of what it takes to shift a system and the type of funding partnership we have with DGMT Trust also makes the whole ecosystem between the three parties around the table, it makes it alive, it makes it work, it makes it practical and doable.
I am at the Department of Basic Education, responsible for early childhood development, and have been working with the DGMT Trust and Ilifa Labantwana on helping galvanize a lot of system change work that needs to happen for us to implement the 2030 strategy for ECD with the vision of reaching universal access to quality ECD programs. We've done a whole system diagnostic to understand just what are those system changes and blockages that needs to be alleviated, that needs to be developed to help us reach this goal. We've been working in close collaboration with Kinsey and Zahira and their teams to say, how do we do this collectively? How do we garner this whole social compact and a whole of society approach to really drive system change, to develop the new systems required, to develop the new business processes required, but more importantly, to land them, to implement them, so that we can collectively reach this goal of universal access to quality ECD.
I think where there have been significant shifts, and I think where this partnership of, DGMT, the Department of Basic Education, and Ilifa has really been key to unlocking opportunities in the sector. So I think the first for me is being able to identify leverage points in the system, whether policy related or issues related to unlocking opportunities for increasing financing for early childhood development. All of these pieces have moved us closer to realizing and achieving our goal of universal access to early childhood development. I think what's critical about that is that we cannot shift systems alone. And I think the work that's being done by the partners around the table has brought us closer to identifying where in the system can we actually be putting all of our effort and pushing in the same direction. And then I think the second piece related to that is around mainstreaming key ideas and concepts about early childhood development. And I think that's critical because often I could mean something different about regulation, or I could mean something different about what increasing public financing can look like. But if we actually have a common understanding of what the challenge and what the issue is, then it becomes much more simpler to then create and design that vision and that language that helps us, number one, talk to ourselves as a sector, but also have much more clarity in engaging with other stakeholders that we need to bring along. And then I think finally, systems change, as I mentioned earlier, is slow work. And I think for me, what's been really critical is a little bit about what Zahir has also been talking about, is the key aspect of relationships and maintaining those connections. Sustaining this work and finding windows of opportunity to intervene are largely by having those relationships where there is that trust, where there is that opportunity to have the difficult conversations, but also work through those challenges. And I think if you look at where we are as a sector, particularly if I think about where ECD was about 3 years ago, and now the ECD sitting with the Department of Basic Education, a number of key achievements have been made. I'm thinking about the work around the 2030 strategy and the all of society approach that has been created, conversations that we've been having for over a decade about registration and how onerous it is for practitioners in the sector, and how some of the work that's been happening as of this year around improving the registration process for practitioners, but also having a galvanized campaign that seeks to bring together not just the ECD sector, but also government as well as the private sector. So those are just some examples, and there are many others, but where I think the connection and the relationship, as well as the work that has gone into building the partnership, has created those windows of opportunity for us to be able to move forward on key and critical issues that impact the early childhood development sector.
The evidence that I see is that comes through strong from this partnership is leadership. Leadership from government, leadership from civil society, leadership from funders. It's their keenness and acknowledgement of the ecosystem. And then through the government's openness, seeing civil society, seeing funders, seeing all of us around the table step up and respond to support our joint vision for early childhood development, for me is what I see as the biggest successes or evidence of what we can do through this type of ecosystem. A lot of what they've been doing, what we've been doing as an ecosystem in the early childhood development space, has spun out with the presidency also stepping up, saying, we want to actually also step in and show leadership for children, not only in the early childhood development space, but to leverage off what we're seeing happening in the ECD space, and through the presidency, elevate what we think is important for our young children.
I think that the challenge that we're trying to address in early childhood development is bigger than any one government department, organization, or sector to achieve. And having partnerships like these have shown such an incredible way of doing it, and we are enormously grateful for everyone that's been willing to partner with us. We're grateful to DGMT and Ilifa Balabantwana to set such an incredible example of how these partnerships can work, and we look forward to walking this journey with them up to 2030.